17 years this happened. "17 years. And something's not right about this case." Isn't it time that the truth come out? This has got to be so hard for your son. Every day, every night. The truth is going to come out.
Toward my own habit. I had a habit that I have no business sitting in front of you today. It was so extensive.
Did you know the Mullets?
Yes. Again, known him my whole life. Ed was another dealer who I bought and sold drugs to.
So you knew the victims of this case? You knew all of them?
Yes.
Several jailhouse informants testified that Kara bragged about killing the Mullets. But Kara's family said they all had incentives to lie. It wasn't easy, but I got one of those informants to talk to me.
Diaries,
See if she's still
can you let me know about the people that are no longer with us,
Thank you
please?
for taking the time to meet with me, considering the circumstances. Do you remember Kara?
Yeah. I've never been in jail before, and they put me in the cell with her.
What were you sentenced to jail for?
Theft.
Of what?
Computer.
Okay. How did you and Kara get along?
Just, we had a lot in common. I ended up getting in a relationship with her.
Oh, really? Who initiated that, you or her?
Her.
All right, so let's talk about the night of the murder. Let's go through that night. Where were you?
Home. Paul's house.
Paul's house.
Paul took my car. I was home, in bed, asleep.
What time did you get up?
I got up when he came and woke me up. Between 6 and 7. He told me, grab your things, let's go.
Go ahead.
We went to a Subway, get something to eat.
Notice her hair color,
Let me
guys.
stop you there. What made you want to do your hair that night?
Nothing
Notice, I
specific
should say,
other
the
than
hair
fact
color of
that
the actress
I
here.
had some really long roots.
Was it your idea to dye your hair?
I don't remember him asking me to, or if I brought it up. I don't.
Doesn't it seem like a huge coincidence that maybe an hour, 2 hours after this murder happened, you're then dyeing your hair?
Well, it wasn't a coincidence at that time because I didn't know a murder had happened.
Now, everything that I know now about her, she's a very manipulative person.
How so?
She told this big story about these people that she owed a whole bunch of money to. She had to do the things that she did, or like it was going to kill her. Yeah.
Kara's family believes that all the jailhouse informants were lying and cut deals to snitch.
I mean, I don't care what they say. I know what she told me.
Were you offered anything to talk?
They tried to tell me that next time I got in trouble, that I wouldn't get in trouble. Yeah, they tried that.
Okay.
But I testified because they told me that the little boy wouldn't have to get up there. That's the only reason I decided to do it.
How come you're getting emotional, Brandy?
Because how could that little kid had to live through that? And they lied to me. The prosecution lied to me and said that little kid wouldn't have to go through that again if I got up there. So I put myself out there. And I've never got to get away from it. I mean, look, 12 years later, I'm still having to deal with it.
So tell me this.
Diaries, is Brandy still around, or is she the one that nobody can find where she is?
What about when you guys disposed of the clothes?
That was after,
I've listened to this man talk. I've watched his
Okay, thank you.
And he could not mastermind his way out of a room with one door. So, why would Paul want to set you up?
Save his own ass.
I trusted you. And you let me down.
Tell me what you testified to on the stand.
That she always told me that she never pulled the trigger first, and Paul did. She said
Oh, we
Paul
don't
pulled
have
the trigger
justice
on him
yet for her.
when he turned
This
his
is
back.
just beginning.
And then she said that she fired on the other two. Because at that point, they'd done killed one person, so they didn't want to leave any witnesses. And she said to me, if I'd known that kid's alive, I'd have killed the little bastard too.
She told you that?
That's exactly what she said.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have any proof of anything. All I do know is that I was not there that night. I did not kill those people.
Well, here's what I know. The person that came to that house was there for a reason. Whether that reason was drugs, revenge.
Couldn't have been drugs. The drugs were left.
Maybe there were more. Maybe those were some that were spilled.
Maybe.
Did Kara show any signs of emotion?
Jalen wasn't even at the trial. At the beginning of this, they said that
Do you
the
remember
investigators
her
wouldn't
crying
talk
to
to
you
them.
about not feeling any remorse?
And, of course, Jalen's not going to talk
testified
about
to
it.
that.
Anthony's not going to talk about it. I'm not sure how old Anthony was when this was made, but
That's what makes me nervous. That, to me, does not sound credible.
They sound not credible. I don't care. I'm done.
No.
I'm done. I'm done.
no, that young woman that he was talking to was Kara with the dark hair and the glasses.
Your mother, she's living her life in prison because you're in prison, and she believes that you're there wrongfully. If you
That's
were
Kara.
responsible, if you were there, if you had any part in this murder, please tell me that so that I can tell her. Because not only do you free her, you'll help free
Absolutely,
yourself.
Chainsaw.
You will.
I wish I could give my mother some kind of peace. Believe me, if anybody deserves it, she does. But I'm not going to stand here and tell you I had any part of something I didn't. If I was going to do that, I would have done that 12 years ago and got myself the out date.
Okay, so this was
I'm
like
not the best person.
5
I
years
never
ago.
have been and never will be. But I love my family, and I don't want to see them suffer. I did a lot of things in my life, okay? I am responsible for living a lifestyle that put me in a situation where I could be accused of doing something like they said.
No, that's
My
not
only
Jalen's sister.
Issue is I don't
That
deserve
is
to die.
Kara, and then the other one is Kara's sister. Jalen is not in this. Paul is in prison right now and gets out this December.
I don't know if the judge realized that when he sentenced Kara to prison, he sentenced you two as well. So, Chris and I, we went into this investigation this week determined to give you both some answers.
You guys gave us 5 leads that you hope would convince us to join in your fight. We looked into all of those leads, and here are the results of our investigation.
Audrey, your first lead is that the prosecution's key witness was completely unreliable. This was a 6-year-old boy who survived the shooting, and I know all our hearts go out to him. But you say he was too young and inconsistent in his statements. So I went to a renowned forensic psychologist. He looked over all the case files and trial testimony, and he was concerned because 2 years later, details of his testimony changed. The color of the clothing that the killer was wearing and the color of the gun. So overall, this is a good lead for Kara.
Makes me feel good. It's what we've kind of thought and known all along.
I mean, he was a baby, and my heart goes out to him, and I don't blame him.
Audrey, your next lead was that you had problems with the way the detectives worked the crime scene. So I went to an independent crime scene reconstruction expert who I trust. The first issue was that even though Kara's gun was used for these murders, she had reported it stolen months earlier. But the expert found something else concerning. Kara's DNA was on that gun. Now, he admits that it's possible that the DNA could have stayed on the gun for the 2 months after the gun was reported stolen, but it's highly unlikely. This leads me to believe that she may have filed a false report claiming that that gun was stolen.
Okay.
The next issue was the bullet's trajectory. You say that since Kara was 7 or 8 inches shorter than the first victim, Ed, the trajectory should have been at an upward angle. But it wasn't. It was at a downward angle. The expert that I spoke with said that Ed might have been crouching trying to shield himself. Because of that, there's no way to tell how tall or short the shooter was. But he was most interested in your last lead, that Kara should have had at least some blood on her clothes after shooting 3 people. So he set up a test. He took 3 mannequins that were the same size as the victims. They were all filled with real animal blood. The expert used the same kind of gun as the killer did, and he shot the mannequins in the exact same spot that the victims were shot.
How did he know that? I mean,
under a chemical that reacts to blood, there was nothing, no blood at all.
this is bullshit.
So, unfortunately, this lead, it won't work for you.
It's just a lot to kind of think about.
Your next lead is that Kara had absolutely no history of violence, so she had no motive to commit this crime. So I reached out to a woman who spent a lot of time with Kara before the murders. She said they bonded over drugs and constantly got high together. But she agrees with you. She says Kara was an addict, but she never saw her act violently towards anyone. She doesn't believe Kara was capable of this kind of cold-blooded murder. But keep in mind, Kara was deep into her addiction. So deep that you had to take custody of her daughter.
Yeah.
When someone is that badly addicted to drugs, you can never really say they don't have a motive to rob.
This was a shitty comment, I think. This was
So
shitty.
this lead, it doesn't hurt Kara, but unfortunately, it really doesn't help her either.
Just can't see her doing it. Just can't.
On to the next lead. There were several jailhouse informants who testified against Kara. You said they all lied and cut deals with the prosecution in exchange for their testimony. So I tracked down one of the women who testified against Kara. Her name is Brandy. She claimed that she and Kara, they shared a cell for many months and that they actually ended up in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She says you're right. The prosecution did try to cut a deal with her in order to testify, but she didn't trust them. She told me she ended up testifying because her heart went out to Anthony, the little boy. To this day, she stands by what she testified to. She says that Kara's cold-blooded and a manipulator. She also claims that Kara told her if she knew the little boy was still alive, she would have shot him too.
I don't really put any credence to anything that she says.
5 jailhouse informants testified against Kara, but has any one of them signed an affidavit saying that they lied? So this lead's not going to help at all.
Your last lead is key. Because the evidence doesn't work in Kara's favor, you're left with only one
Yep.
possibility.
And I wanna highlight that. Diaries of Crime says there is a letter from Brandy after the fact, okay? And I'm going to show that because that's on the free Kara Garvin website. Indeed, Brandy did write a letter to her after this episode was done, saying that she lied on the stands. And I'll show that after.
Was set up by her boyfriend, Paul Balmer, to take this fall. Now, I spoke to one of Paul's stepsons who said it kind of sounds like something Paul would do. So let's entertain this lead for a bit. Let's walk through what would have had to happen for Paul to plan these murders and make Kara take the fall. Paul Balmer's master plan would have had to start 2 months earlier when the guns were reported stolen. On the day of the murder, he would have had to take Kara's car and Kara's gun to the crime scene. He would have had to find another woman willing to rob and kill with him.
Or
to his trailer,
could have lied.
rouse Kara, and convince her to dye her hair. And
Someone could have
he
lied.
had to make sure that the murder weapon with Kara's DNA on it and her clothes was someplace he can lead police to later on. This is the kind of plan that could only be hatched by some evil genius. So is this within the realm of possibilities? I suppose anything is. Convicts get new trials based on new facts, new evidence, not wild things.
Right, Diaries.
So this lead, unfortunately, it will not help you.
I don't think there was a
So
woman
you
there.
think Paul did it himself, dressed up as a woman?
I just don't think the child saw a woman. I really believe he was asleep.
Now we're just grasping at straws.
I'll never believe she did it.
Yeah, I thought this guy was an asshole in this.
I can see why people believe in Kara. She's attractive. She's charismatic.
She's attractive. Why would you throw that in
She
there?
makes herself out to be a victim of an unfair system, and most of all, a victim of Paul.
But if we're to believe that Paul masterminded all this, that he betrayed her, it's very hard to reconcile that with these letters here that Kara wrote to him from prison. In one of these, she writes, "I'm not mad or any they may tell you. Just stay strong, make those bastards do their own jobs. I sure as hell ain't gonna do it for them." That doesn't exactly sound like an innocent woman writing to a man who set her up and lied about her killing a family of 3.
We may never know exactly what happened on December 22nd of 2008, but we do know that the evidence in this case is stacked against Kara, and none of the leads you gave us, they really don't change that. So we cannot get behind your fight to help free Kara.
I think it's crucial to accept that Kara was in the throes of a horrible drug addiction. You guys are still lucky she's alive. But that kind of addiction, it changes a person. And many will lie, steal, and even kill to get their next fix.
Audrey, you told us that Kara would not allow you to keep fighting for her if she was guilty. Sadly, I think the evidence shows that's not the case.
I'm sorry. I disagree.
If you want to continue a fight that's going to be in vain for the rest of your remaining
Exactly,
life,
Trisha.
you're a mother. Nobody's going to fault you for it. But you're a mother of many others too, and they need you. Yeah. Andy, you're an amazing daughter. And you know why you're amazing? Because no matter what you believe in, you want to stand by your mom. And I just wish that Kara would show you the same graciousness. Because I'll tell you right now, Audrey, she has things to tell you.
Oh my
But by
God.
her allowing you to wage this war for her all these years, that is unfair.
This woman is a bitch.
Audrey, will you promise us that you'll take a step back first, gather your thoughts, and then have that talk with your daughter?
Yes.
Okay.
What a bitch. I'll tell you, I have to say, I have never seen a family be treated like that in any type of show like that. They were about as sensitive as, I don't even want to say anything. I don't even want to say anything bad. A couple things I wanted to clear up here. I know I never remember your new screen name, but Truth is in here. I was reading I read through a lot of the statements that the police officers made that night. And one of the statements said that they took Kara's clothing, they confiscated it to test it because they said that there was a stain on the side of her boots that they thought might be blood. And Emily cleared it up and said there was none on her boots and there was none on the clothes. Somebody asked in here during the video, was GSR testing done? And that's the gunshot residue. It was done on Kara when she was there, and it came back negative for gunshot residue. And by the time Paul, now let's remember this too. I mean, there's so many fucking things with this case that are just so bent out of whack. Okay. So this thing happens. Okay. This event happens. And what happens? Kara goes to the police station with a relative who's a lawyer. She's thinking she's going there because they possibly found her pew-pew. If she had done this, do you think she would have just like strolled into the police department? I mean, who the hell would have done that? If somebody did that, they would have gotten the hell out of there and gone as far away, kind of like what Paul did after it happened. Because Paul hightailed it to Florida. And they had so much. You know, and I, you know what? I'm sorry that it's freezing up. I'm sorry that there's probably going to be, I'm going to be jumping all over the place with this. Okay. So I apologize, but a couple things that are just smack you in the face. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. Did you guys see that car that they showed, that the one that Kara was driving? Did you see what color that was? What color was that car? What color was it? Grayish silver, maybe a gray blue, smoky blue. Right. What did Anthony say the color of the car was? Tan. What did the neighbor say? The neighbor, the one where Anthony supposedly ran down the hill. What was his name? I have so many papers, guys. Just give me a minute here. I think it was Dameron, James Dameron. What color did he say it was? Tan. Who has a tan Jeep at that time? Jalen's mom. Okay, did you see how tinted the windows were in that car? The glass was really tinted on it. Okay? Mr. Dameron says that the car went up the hill to the house. Okay? He had gone outside because he heard dogs barking or something. He was outside, and just at that second, he saw a tan vehicle go up the road. Now, going up that road, you're going up to their house, because I think based on the map that I saw, there were like 2 trailers up there. Okay, so you're going up that way. So then he says he goes back inside to get a cigarette or something like that. And then he comes back outside and he sees the tan car coming down the hill. And he says that he was able to see a woman driving that car. That. Number one, the windows were so tinted. There's no truth. And I caught this on the statements. Paul said in his interrogation that he was driving. Paul said he drove up there. He threw something in there, went back into the house, got something else, and said, go on the hill. He was the driver. How could James, and the windows were tinted, and it was actually a man driving? And if you look at Paul, There's no way he's a chick. I'll tell you that right now. There's so much. There's so much. First of all, sorry, but I thought the way that they did it was, I thought it was lopsided. I think that testing they did was no better than an 8th grade science test. I'm basing everything that I'm going to bring up tonight is going to be based on the fact that I did not see the court transcripts, okay? I did not see what testing they did, if they did any trajectory testing of the pew-pew. I didn't see any trajectory as to the distance they think the person was when they pulled the trigger. I didn't see anything like that. So if that was discussed during the trial, then, you know, I'm putting that out there. But how did this person know that did this testing, how close or how far the person was with the pew-pew? Because he really didn't seem to like do a measurement of a distance between the pew-pew and the person. He just kind of aimed and pulled the trigger. Okay? Which to me is the trajectory photo was shown in the video. Yes and no. I mean, it wasn't really a trajectory video. I mean, there was no reenactment of a body, a measurement of distance based on damage to the skin or to the skeleton. There was nothing like that. Now, the thing that somebody said here, and I wanted to point this out, and I have to watch the way I word this because it is, you know, there's a lot of words that have to be kind of changed here. If somebody gets pew-pewed, okay, and immediately they're no longer, there's not going to be as much blood as if somebody gets pew-pewed and the heart continues going. It's physiologically impossible because in order to get that flow, there has to be the heart going, okay? So in terms of what they said about getting something kicked up onto the clothing, that could go either way. But I would think regardless of that, okay, if you have a pew-pew in your hand, okay, and supposedly she has a 38 special, that has a kick to it. Okay, that is a revolver that when it goes, it is a pretty sizable munition and it is going to kick up a puff, okay? It's going to kick up a puff and that's going to go somewhere. So the fact that they did a GSR on her that night within like 6 hours and there was nothing on her, and there was nothing on the clothing. You know, and I had Kara's mom, and if you can ask her a question for me. a testing on the clothing that was found in the woods. No, there was no blood found it. Do you want to come up here? It'd probably. I know I'm cutting in and out. It's not my wife. There was no food on the blood, clothing found, or victim DNA. Okay, that was my question. Did they find any DNA at all anywhere on that coat? Anywhere? Did they look under the sleeves? Did they look on the collar? Did they look under the collar? Did they find any DNA? Because I'll tell you what was the size of that coat? Wasn't that coat? Wasn't that an XXL? Now, why would somebody who's like 100 pounds, 5'2", wear an XXL shirt? I'll tell you who could have worn an XXL shirt, though. So the camo shirt was the camo. Okay, the jacket was hers. What about the hers? Okay, so the purple shirt was not hers. And did they do a DNA analysis on that shirt?
I forget it.
Okay, the sleeveless shirt was a 2XL, not hers. Okay. And there was no DNA on it. Okay. Okay. So a couple things about what we just saw. Okay. Again, Dustin, who was the young man whose mother passed away, passed away, and then about a month later, diaries. Can you taking? It, Hey.
Hey.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So you're saying what came back with Paul's DNA on it?
Miss Audrey?
The purple shirt came back, they said, with and nobody else's, no victim. Kara's clothes was also wrapped up in this mess, and they said there was GSR on that, and And there was some latex gloves. Kara was a EMT, and the latex gloves.
Do we know what size those were? I mean, would she have reason to have a pair of those?
Burner and just, stuff like that. Just a pair that they all wore.
Okay.
He wore, she wore, and he has a son, and he was a pretty big boy, even though he was young, and even he wore them.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wore the shoes too. Those boots that she had on, those had been Robin's, Paul's wife, the one that,
right.
What happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, just so I understand, Dustin is no longer alive, correct?
No, he isn't.
And from what I understand, it was an OD?
It would appear that way, yes.
Okay.
That's what I understand.
James Dameron, he's no longer with us?
No, he isn't.
And was that an OD also?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I don't really know.
Okay. That's kind of something I'd like to look into because it would be kind of interesting.
He didn't really care much for my family because I had a brother that was an addict, and he went with, I think, his daughter, one of his daughters, and she OD'd while being with my brother. So he didn't care much for us, excuse me, to begin with, but he wasn't very bright.
Yeah. I have a question, Miss Audrey, and look, thank you so much. I mean, I was not expecting this tonight. I'm going to tell you that right now, but I appreciate you coming in here because I have to say, based on a lot of the reading I've done and a lot of the research, and thanks to a lot of my supporters on here, they've sent me a lot of information and all that. I have to say, I agree with Diaries here. Your daughter was railroaded. I mean, there is just so much on here that so many inconsistencies, so many discrepancies, so many people that are tied in somehow with the family, with past and I mean, to me, it's just unbelievable. So, you have a young lady here, and, to be honest with you, there are a lot of people that follow me that at one point or another had some, and, there's a number of people in here that have had addiction to drugs. And, all of them are clean for various years. And just because they were addicts didn't mean that they committed a heinous crime. And the way that they made it sound in that episode is basically saying that it's more likely she's guilty because she was a drug user.
Yeah.
And that really pissed me off because, unfortunately, that's the way that people that don't know anything about addicts, and to be honest, I didn't know a lot about them before I came on TikTok because without having people I know like that. But, the kind of the thing is people believe that addicts are always criminals. They always do wrong. And, if there's two people that are, that one of them can be guilty of a bad crime, people are always going to pick the addict because they think that that's the case. And the more I read here, the more and more, to be honest, I started getting pissed off, and I had to take time in between looking at this stuff because I was getting so angry. I can't even imagine what you've gone through because, obviously I have no physical or emotional ties to anybody in this story, and I cannot begin to imagine what you have been going through for the last 17 years. You are a much stronger person than anybody I know. Knowing what you've seen and your feelings and what your daughter has told you, you seeing the same information that everybody else has seen with all the questions and the no answers. Knowing that family, in that town and in that county, and the type of, and this is coming from me, okay? This are involved in, knowing the trips down to Florida and what that's all about. Knowing how there's some people in that town with a last name that seem to skirt out of serious criminal problems. This is dirty as hell. This is dirty as hell. And what has to happen is there has to be enough stink and enough kicking dirt for this town to be scrutinized by a higher authority. And I'm talking about the FBI. Because there is too much going on in this town.
Yeah, you can. She can hear you.
The FBI, you can forget it, okay? When a lot of the corruption and the drugs, you understand Portsmouth was the epicenter of drugs, of the Oxycontin addiction. Doctors were writing scripts, giving them multiple drugs, and they were overdosing left and right. This is where it started. That worked at the drug dealer or the doctor's office at the end of the street where the sheriff's department is. You understand? The DEA, all of those people, they know this. There's so much corruption. You can read about it when you read about Judge Marshall and Mike Moran. You can read all those things and the missing women. And you understand, we're not going to change things. We're not. We can go down there and we can scream and we can yell. We'll just get ourselves in trouble. Or we'll get Kara in trouble. But it's going to be a higher power than us, than we, that'll get anything done. They know what goes on in Scioto County. Columbus knows. They knew that the sheriff's sister worked up there, and guess what? When they raided it, they weren't there. Only Kelly temps. Now, why do you think that happened? How do you think that happened? You think that just maybe the sheriff told his sister?
I heard that there's a lot. I heard that there's a lot of that goes on in that county, where when there's going to be a raid somewhere, people get a heads up.
Listen, Denver Triggs went and told Paul Balmer. I have it, I do believe I may even have a recording where, but I may not. I know I got some recordings where Paul Balmer was making deals, and while Kara was talking to her daughter, he was doing things on another phone, and you could hear him. But Trix was telling Paul Balmer, he giving him the heads up when task force came to town. That's why if you would listen to the video or the audio, Paul's saying, "I don't understand that drug charge. I drugs. I don't understand." Yeah. He was pretty much telling Triggs, "How did that happen? You told me for." And
right, and that's.
I remember what happened.
Yeah, and kind of going sideways for a minute in terms of something you said. Florida?
Oh, I don't remember what he said on the stand, but I remember he told Triggs and Matt Spencer, the two detectives, that he got scared.
Maybe because he was guilty of something?
Well, usually people who run because they are guilty. People who are not guilty go in.
Yep.
Thinking that all they have to do is tell the truth and they'll be released. And that doesn't happen most of the time.
And so I get the relationship correct here. Your daughter went to speak with the police was it her cousin who was the attorney?
Yes.
Okay. And he had suggested to her that she not talk, correct?
Right, correct.
And her reasoning for talking was why?
It's just like every other person who's ever been wrongfully convicted. Ask them. They talk because they think, I just tell them the truth and they'll believe me.
Exactly.
But you got to understand, she didn't tell them anything that really convicted her. She told one lie. She told one lie the whole time. It was when she dyed her hair. She said, I didn't, and then when she lied, so it made it look like her hair was dyed before those things happened. But it was because she said, I knew there was something about my hair and when I dyed it that was important, but I didn't know what, and I lied. Mm-hmm. But it was okay because even though she lied, there's a video that showed that she was blonde and not a brunette. The other thing, and then I keep harping about it, and, right. Well, I guess I shouldn't say anything. I'm working with an investigator, and they did tell me to lay low. There's some things that doesn't add up. But if you say anything, if it exists, they're going to get rid of it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. I understand. That's why please be careful because I don't want you to say anything you shouldn't. Because you are going with right now. I don't want anything to jeopardize that. Okay, please.
Okay.
But Sammy, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I think Miss Audrey has had enough for tonight.
I think that's I listen. Thank you. Our hearts are broken for you. All 300 and something people in here. Please be careful. Please take care of yourself. Please know that we are a large number of people and we are not going to let this go. We're not.
Can I tell you one thing before I go?
Sure.
Brandon, when they filmed that, you got to understand, when you guys are watching that show, I haven't even seen it because I can't handle it. But they would say, Audrey, look at Andy. Andy, look at Audrey. And then they would put it in there where it looked like we were going, oh my gosh, like that everything was a surprise. You got to understand, there was nothing that was a surprise that they told me. When they told me Brandy Fitzpatrick was going to be, they were interviewing, I laughed. I laughed out loud. They didn't show that, I'm sure. And I said, really? What about the affidavit? Because she almost signed an affidavit admitting to an investigator from the Ohio Public Defender's Office that she lied. And what she did do is when she did get to prison, she wrote that letter. That letter was written about lying in court. Not about that show, about lying in court. That's all I wanted to say.
No, and you know what? You could tell that the editing was really bad. I mean, you could tell that the looks from back and forth, those were just edited in there, and it was terrible.
I don't know. I didn't see it. But I've heard.
You get some rest, okay? And we are a large number of people behind you, and
Sammy, at another time, I'm gonna get out of here so I can be there for Miss Audrey and talk with her.
I agree. Thank you so much.
It's no problem. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Okay.
So,
now, I don't know if Andy is in here. Andy is Kara's sister. She had commented on my on a post I made about this live tonight, and I asked her if she would be in here tonight, and she said that she would. I think she's probably only listening, though. I don't think she wants to come up in a box, which is totally fine. There's a lot of questions. I mean, I've heard from a number of people that, this town is a dirty town. And there's a lot of drug action going on. I've heard that the action starts in Florida and it gets driven up to this area in Ohio. And that's where everything is sold. I heard that conflict between Mr. Millette, who passed, and his brother, because I heard that Mr. Millette may have been charging a little less than he should have for his entrepreneurial business that he had. And I heard that his brother was not very happy about that. I also heard something else. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it, so I'm going to hold off on it. So there are a lot of people in this town that are tied in some way together. There are a hell of a lot of people in this family, some of which are seem to be in the there are agricultural sales. Yeah. There is some word as to some people within the town's, shall we say, upper echelon that have family members that were also shopping at some of these players' should we say stores, if you know what I mean. How is Jalen's son involved? The story is that he was in the trailer at the time of this happening. There's one story I heard that supposedly his aunt, who was the youngest in the trailer that passed, was holding him. Yeah, the story is. I heard another story that he was hiding when it happened. He was behind a couch or something. But here's my question, and this is the one that doesn't make any sense to me. And I've said this before. You have Kara, sleeping too, that was the other one. You have Kara, who is 5'2" and a little over 100 pounds, who supposedly busted into this place, was able to keep 3 adults at bay, all of which were either about her size or bigger. And she was able to reportedly do what she did to 3 adults. Yet when she busted through a door, nobody stood up. Nobody was looking at, nobody was startled by anything. nobody stood up in surprise when they heard a commotion. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And where the victims were found, they looked completely calm and unaffected by supposedly what had happened in the house. One was sitting on a couch and actually, in a way was looking very, very peaceful. I mean, another one supposedly was sitting in on a couch or a chair. Unflustered way after it. If you had heard that noise, you would have stood up. You would have checked to see what the commotion was. You would have maybe tried to approach the person that was that came through the door. You would have done something. You wouldn't have just sat there and waited, to see what was going on. I find that ridiculous. To me, my feeling is Kara was not involved in this at all. I believe her that she wasn't even there. And let me tell you why I think that is. If Kara was this rugged out, murderous person, okay, why would she allow the only eyewitness to still be around? I mean, why would you do that? But tell me something. In a situation like that, somebody goes in with another person and these people, 3 people out of 4 in a small trailer arrived. You have to have some type of a connection. Okay. To not take his life. Exactly. Truth. I mean, think about that. He was 6 years old. Now, we know a couple things, okay? We know that Jalen never took him to therapy. Wouldn't you think as a parent, the first thing you would do if your 6-year-old went through something like that is to take him to therapy at a young age? I mean, that's the first thing a parent would do. But what happens when you go to therapy and you've been through a traumatic experience? You have to talk about it. And if he's in therapy and he has to talk about it, he has to talk about what happened. And you're going to talk about the truth. Now, I wrote down a bunch of stuff. And Truth, I know you're still in here. And by the way, Truth, you will always be truth to me. So I hope you know that I'm talking about you. A couple things here. And Truth, if you know the answers to these, I would appreciate you answering them because, again, I don't know a lot about what happened in the trial itself. But let me read this through here. These were the. Let me actually pull them up here so you can see it. I'm going to read you. I took notes when I was reading these statements from all of the officers that were there that night. And there were a lot of discrepancies. So these were, if you go to the website, Free Kara Garvin, if you go to the upper left-hand corner and you go to statements, it's going to have all the statements of the police officers, everybody that was involved in the case at that night, okay? The first person that I'm reading about is, let me find the right page here, is one of the investigators here, okay? And let me make sure I have my documents here. Okay, this was Detective Spencer, okay? And I'm going to read these things so it'll jog my memory. Okay, we saw for sure that the car that they were in, and we know that they were in it because it was the car that Paul was caught in down in Florida. It was a grayish, bluish Toyota, I believe it was. Okay, but they said it was a tan vehicle. Both Anthony and James Dameron said it was a tan vehicle. Okay, that's sketchy as hell. Now, another thing that was weird, okay? So the story is that after this happened, Anthony ran down to the neighbor, okay? And from what the timeline is he ran down there. He told Mr. Dameron what happened. Mr. Dameron called Jalen up and then called the police. And at that point, Anthony spoke to the police. Now, when David Hall made his statement, okay, he said that I spoke to Anthony in front of his mother at the home of an uncle named James Dameron. Was that really his uncle? Of an uncle named James Dameron? I don't think that was his uncle. I mean, there were a lot of, right, exact. There were a lot of weird things when I was reading this that just didn't make any sense. According to what they said, a lady walked in and started pew-pewing. The original description that Anthony gave was a skinny woman in a black vest. Yeah, it said uncle. A skinny woman in a black vest. Skinny is right, but a black vest? There was no black vest. Okay? According to what Paul said, it was a camouflage coat over a shirt. Okay? And that's what was found off the side of the road. Now, we know we know what the description of Kara was. She was thin, a little over 100 pounds. She was 5'2". If you see the mugshots that Anthony was showed, all of the women's pictures in it, okay, were women that were, and listen, I'm sorry, I read how they did this, and they say what they do is they take the person of interest and then they put it into a computer, and then the computer supposedly finds people that that are around those same measurements and all that, and spits out 6 pictures. Okay. I saw that lineup, and there was nobody that looked like they were about 100 pounds. And I'm not like fat shaming, but the other 5 people in those pictures, their faces were up close. They looked heavier. And then in the upper right-hand corner was Kara's picture, where the way to do a lineup. Not at all. I think you may have showed them. Message them to me if you have time. And if you're overwhelmed right now, Truth, don't do it, because I know this is taking a lot out. I know that. And we don't need to see it. So Anthony said the person was wearing a black vest. Her boots did not have spikes on them. Boots that she had when she went on her own to the police station were nothing like that. And the police made the comment at the time that they took her boots in because they thought it looked like there was some type of there may be blood on them, which it turned out there was none. Okay. Anthony said that the person may have been wearing a Band-Aid on their neck. Now, I showed you a picture of Jaylyn around that same time where she had just gotten a tattoo on her neck. Again, James Dameron, Jeep going up the hill to Ed's house. Jeep came back down. Okay, no way he could have seen that because number one, she didn't have dark hair at the time. Number two, you can't. And number three, Paul even admitted he was driving. So right then and there, okay? Right then and there, that you cannot accept his statement and you can't accept Anthony's statement because they both lied about that. It wasn't a tan car. And as Truth said, guess who owned a tan Jeep? Jalen's mom. Somebody made a statement, and I think it was the neighbor again, James Dameron. And I believe, and I just want to preface this because my notes aren't clear, but I believe this was his statement that, and it was a quote, one of the residents stated that Kara Garvin and Paul Ballmer drove a vehicle like that, meaning a tan vehicle, which is wrong. They did not. They did not drive a tan vehicle. Again, Kara, on her own, went to the police station to talk to them. Paul was the one who ran to Florida. In the video, when they went to Subway, which was about 2 hours after this happened, she was shown to still have her dirty blonde hair. Yeah, Paul left her when he ran. Did Jalen know Paul very well? I think they did. Truth could. I think Truth could verify that if she's still in here. Yes. I can look to see for that picture. Does anybody know how long after the crime until Kara went to talk to police? I think it was about. This supposedly happened about 6:30. Yeah, I was gonna say. And I think she was in at like, what time was she in at? Like 11 o'clock at. They said that information that Kara used her phone in the area of Napoleon Lane, Franklin Furnace, about an hour before the event. In the area of is not at the house. So she could have been driving somewhere with Paul in that area. And I'm not even talking about at the time of the event. I'm talking about during the day. They said it was about an hour, whatever, but they didn't really say where it was pinpointed. They just said that it was in the vicinity of that area, in the area of. Didn't Kara say that Paul had her phone? Am I dreaming that, or did she say that? Yeah, Paul had her phone, exactly. Does somebody know, one of the things that I could not find that I had a question about, did somebody have, they said that there was a video. They said that there was a video of Kara in Family Dollar buying the hair dye. Does anybody know if that is the truth? Was that shown in court? Paul is in prison right now and he gets out in December. Why does he get out? Because he cut a deal. So there was a video from Dollar General of her buying the hair dye. Because I don't know what the timestamp is of the Subway picture of her in there, and I don't know what the timestamp of the Dollar General was. She went to Subway and the dollar store. Right. Do we know the timestamp of those, though? Because I saw the Subway picture, and I don't remember seeing a time. And I don't want to put anything out there if I'm not sure of it. Right, within minutes, but this was before it happened. Okay, you're right. I know they're near each other, absolutely. But it was after it happened. Yes, Princess. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so after it happened. Yep. Okay, so they interviewed the guy that Paul went down to Florida to visit. Okay, the guy's name is Ray Rodriguez. Okay, and I guess he and Kara had been there before. And Ray said that Paul called him and said, 3 people. And he said, I'll be there in a couple hours. So they met for dinner. And according to Ray, Paul didn't talk much because he was upset. And then when Paul saw the story on the TV in Florida, he needed to leave. So he absolutely left the scene of the crime. Okay. He went to Florida. He got away. And then he realized he needs to go somewhere else. Okay. And he did that. And they caught him. Finally, they impounded the car. They arrested him. And then he was extradited. Now, this is weird. This is weird. In every single statement that Anthony made was that the person had a silver pew-pew. He said it very clearly, a silver pew-pew, a silver pew-pew. And then all of a sudden it changed to a black pew-pew. And if I'm not mistaken, that changed when he was on the stand. Now, the other thing that's weird is that Paul said that he didn't like Kara having a pew-pew. But that night, she supposedly had 3 of them. And let's talk about what she had for a minute, okay? She had a semi, okay? A semi-aught. And it has a clip in it with 5. She had a Derringer. And a Derringer is and then there was a Taurus 38 special. Now, I'm buying one of these and ended up getting something else. But based on what I read, the supposed weapon that was used. Now, a Taurus will hold 6 or 8 rounds, depending on the make and the model. Okay? Now, the thing that was weird to me about this is it mentioned that the semi-auto was full and no rounds were used. The Derringer was full, no rounds were used. But they didn't mention about the 38 how many rounds were in it or how many casings were in it. Because as you guys know with a revolver, when you use it and you pull it, the casing stays in the gun, unlike a semi-auto, which the casing gets ejected. So the casings stay in the revolver. And then when you're done, you empty the casings and you can, reload them. When they found the clothing with these in, they didn't mention anything about that 38 with how many rounds were in it or how many casings were in it. Or how many casings were in it. Okay, she said that when the pistol was brought to the police station, it had been totally wiped, meaning that the chamber itself had full ammo in all of them. There were no empty. How is that possible? And Truth, if you're in there, if you can verify that, because that's what I had heard.